name is Lauren Anderson. I'm the executive director of the New York City Tech Talent Pipeline, the city's tech industry partnership. Rob Domanski is TTP's director of higher education. And in this capacity, he works with CUNY computer science departments to ensure that they have the capacity to work with industry to better prepare New Yorkers for tech jobs. Throughout the pandemic, Rob's guiding mantra was and continues to be, what more can we do to help? You cannot stop Rob from trying to do more to help. In the early days of the pandemic, this took many forms, from helping to identify opportunities to get students laptops when the whole CUNY system shifted online, to equipping industry adjuncts that we had teaching across the CUNY system with tips that they needed to better prepare their courses and better engage students to improve learning outcomes in a remote setting. Rob also developed an entire network of industry professionals that worked together with Rob and the rest of the city to build platforms for various needs, including the city's PPE marketplace. Rob also supported the development of a new model for connecting CUNY students to open source projects that could stand in lieu of internships when the city's employers over the summer stopped or canceled their internship programs because of the pandemic. Some of this early work was obviously very impactful for New Yorkers who were facing an incredible crisis of not being able to learn or have jobs to be able to support themselves. And some of that had an immediate benefit for New Yorkers that we could see and hear about. And some of it has been work that is more long lasting and continues to help us to this day, such as some of the original research that Rob put together around what challenges stood in the way of remote learners. But even in addition to all of the things that Rob did in the early days of the pandemic to help ensure that New Yorkers could connect to tech jobs and can continue to learn, I was inspired to nominate Rob for this prize because of the effect that his attitude had towards our team. Rob's enthusiasm and passion for the work is infectious. It kept all of us motivated and mobilized during a really difficult time. And despite the many challenges that are facing us and continue to face us in the city's recovery, Rob is undaunted and unfazed in the face of challenges. And it has been inspirational, to say the least, to see him and how our team responds to him tackling challenges on behalf of New Yorkers. So this prize is much deserved. It is so wonderful that Rob is being recognized for the inspirational work that he does, and he should know that he is a daily inspiration to our team and keeps us going and pointed in the direction we need to go in order to help New Yorkers. So thank you, Rob, so much, and congratulations on this prize.
Welcome. My name is Adam Scott Want. I'm an assistant professor of public policy at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I'm here with Dr. Robert Domanski. He's a former CUNY faculty member and is currently New York City's Director of Higher Education for the Mayor's Tech Talent Pipeline Industry Partnership. Robert directs the CUNY 2X Tech Initiative, which is a $20 million investment in CUNY to double the university's number of computer science graduates within 5 years and connect them to employment. Robert, thank you for joining me on this interview.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So I think what I want to start off asking is tell us a little bit about the agency you work for.
Sure. I work for the city's Department of Small Business Services, SBS, and the Tech Talent Pipeline sits in a unique position as you mentioned, we are the mayor's industry partnership for tech. And so within the Department of Small Business Services, our role specifically is to work with companies in New York City's tech ecosystem, determine their needs in terms of workforce and talent and skills, and simultaneously work with the city's educational partners, both CUNY as well as training providers, and truly develop the tech talent pipeline and working in workforce development to make sure that the companies and the city's institutions really are producing the talent that these companies need to thrive and succeed.
You know, working in the tech industry in New York City must be great. And being the bridge between the mayor's office and education and the tech industry must truly be fulfilling for you. That must be amazing.
It's always very interesting, and it is exciting to be at that nexus where we have a foot in all three of these worlds, right? Government, private sector, and the educational institutions. There's never a dull moment.
Especially in New York City. It's a great place to do what you're doing. You know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a problem that you needed to solve, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're doing this interview. Could you tell us a little bit about that problem?
Sure. I'll start off by speaking about my particular work stream. So, as you mentioned, I oversee the CUNY 2X Tech Initiative, where we work with the senior colleges within the CUNY system primarily in order to double the number of tech bachelor's degrees and connect those graduates to employment. When the pandemic first began, if we remember back to those early weeks and months, initially companies put on the brakes, both in terms of their day-to-day processes, but especially with hiring new hires. As folks were getting furloughed and unemployed, new hires were quickly becoming like almost non-existent. And so the team I work on within the Tech Talent Pipeline, right from the outset of the pandemic, the problem we were directly confronted with was how can we still not only continue preparing students for jobs, which right now we don't know to what extent they will exist in a few months, but how can we also really ensure that the anticipated graduates, there were thousands of students literally about to graduate, 2 months later, how can we still do whatever we can to connect them to employers that are hiring and for specific jobs? And we were confronted, really, the challenge was with our ongoing activities relating to internship preparation, internship connection, but then also direct employment connection for the anticipated graduates. Those were the immediate things right in front of us that we wanted to continue serving folks, all those students, and making sure that they were positioned to succeed on the job market. And really, this is a story of that evolved over those first initial months of the pandemic. First of all, in terms of solving the problem, to the extent that we solved it, I have to say, again, the team I work on, and ultimately, the award through the Hayes Foundation that I received, really, I think I accepted it on behalf of my entire team at the Tech Talent Pipeline. We have really a tremendous team that from day one was so committed and put all their hearts into working round the clock, like all hands on deck, to do everything we could, initially to triage with sort of the employment crisis that was developing hour by hour in some cases, with new developments initially. And after the first few weeks where we were in constant triage mode, as things began to settle into a new normal, a pandemic new normal, then our attention turned a little less to triaging and more towards how do we need to change what we do, right? What should we look to preserve and continue doing that we always have, versus where do we need to pivot and what changes do we need to make strategically in order to really address the emerging problems directly caused by the pandemic. And our entire team, we were in strategic conversations constantly. We were trying to both fulfill existing commitments, but also look to new problems that needed to be solved, still within our larger purview, and do anything that we could. And really, every member of our team was so motivated and really put everything they had into making sure that we did everything we could, in order to help as many folks that we were capable of helping.
Could you identify several obstacles that really stood in your way that were unique and how you overcame those obstacles?
Sure. First and foremost, again, with the workforce development type of work that our team is on, if so much of our job collectively is to connect students and graduates to jobs, when the jobs dried up, we had nowhere to pipe these folks into. And so that was the most direct, immediate challenge at the outset of the pandemic was we're preparing students for jobs that right now don't exist. When will they come back? No one knows. What will the market look like, the employment market look like when they do come back, right? Will everyone still need software engineers? Maybe they'll need fewer entry level and some more advanced, or maybe the opposite might be true. So there were an awful lot of unknowns in terms of what employers would be looking for. And in the meantime, we were still preparing students, and they were getting very close to actually being done with their education and needing to apply to those positions that, again, weren't really existing, certainly in the same configuration that they had been previously.
How do you develop the skills necessary to take on this type of innovation? Are these formally learned? Are they self-taught? Do you kind of build it as you go? Where do your skill set really come from?
Sure. In terms of skill set, the skills involved, again, administrators within city government, it's seeing the value in maintaining flexibility in thinking and ability to adapt and change based on events and things happening around us. So I think not being locked into certain modes of thinking was the most critical component of what all of us really were dealing with. With that said, an awful lot of what makes it possible to innovate and do some of the things that our team did, it really comes from leadership. It comes from the top. And I have to say, both my immediate boss or supervisor, Lauren Anderson, our executive director, I'll call her out by name, as well as those even at the top of our agency, from the commissioner and deputy commissioner level on down, we had leadership that, despite having to deal with so many other things outside of the scope of this work that I'm specifically on, they still really both set the example and explicitly were telling us, right, adapt, think differently, try to respond in ways that make sense to serve people based on what's happening. And rather than having sort of a defensive posture, we just have to preserve and protect everything we do. Instead, I think from our leadership, we got clear signals, which was very helpful to get those clear signals that we need to start thinking of doing things differently, and we need to do them quick. We need to maintain the ability to adapt and pivot to changing circumstances at very short notice in most cases. And again, with that being the mode of communication within our agency, I think that was very helpful in kind of blazing the path so the rest of us could follow that lead and kind of think along those terms as well.
So you said three things that really stick out to me. Three things that my life experience has taught me are critical for success. Number one is the support of good leadership, right? If you have good leadership, your chances of success are exponentially greater. The second thing that you said is, and I've seen this in my professional and personal life, um, leaders that are not only good, but that inspire innovation. There's almost nothing more important than having a leader who allows you to work in an environment where you could come up with new things and not feel like you're closed within a specific box or old way of thinking. To me, in my experience, nothing's worse than we do it this way because we've always done it that way, right? And then the third thing that you said, which is one of my personal mantras, so to say, is out of the box thinking, because not everybody feels comfortable working outside of the box because not everybody allows or supports it like your leadership.
Yeah, it's something I value and appreciate still to this day. It was fantastic having that style of leadership coming within our agency. I will say that, yes, to students or anyone else, in the audience here, as someone who kind of studies public policy, public administration myself, you know, what we're still curious about, what we're still working on and looking at, 15 or 16 months after the pandemic began for us here in New York, is the long-term implications, right? And so this pandemic, and especially those early weeks and months, was absolutely an historic focusing event, right? Which did lead and is still, in a rather initial sense, leading to an entirely new type of policy agenda, that I think will have implications for the next several years, maybe decade going forward. And I think on our team specifically at the Tech Talent Pipeline, from the beginning, we saw this for what it was. This was, even when there were all these unknowns, how long it would last, how bad it would be, we knew immediately that this would be an historic focusing event one way or another, and that there's certainly some opportunities when that arises in order to shake things up and let certain things that maybe could have expired already but lingered on. It's time to kind of trim those branches and at the same time pivot into new areas that suddenly made sense to in this new environment. And so it's really been a lesson, certainly for me personally, in how focusing events really do help shape agendas and lead to this punctuated equilibrium approach to policymaking, where you might have incremental policy developments over time, but all of a sudden there is a brief short moment when an awful lot of activity takes place and new innovations can develop before the next round of gradual incrementalism will kind of take effect. So it's been an exciting time to be in this space and work for government as it's all been happening. Granted, I use words like exciting and opportunity, but clearly this is in the larger context of an historic tragedy that the pandemic has brought on. Um, and certainly that has been at the forefront of all of our minds. It's just depending on the different particular work we're doing day to day. I will say our team never lost sight of that, really what's happening at the human level. And we were just trying our best to kind of mitigate the damage from the pandemic in that sense.
I was thinking about that. Despite all of the innovations and progress that's made, there's so much of loss for New York City through the pandemic. It's definitely something that needs to be acknowledged, and something that, if we learn a lesson through all of this from a public policy point of view, it will hopefully be how to continue to be innovative in situations that are not pandemics or catastrophes. I think that we would learn a lot coming out of there. Just two more questions. Let me ask you a little bit about the Hayes Foundation Award and the Hayes Foundation and what it means for you and your team.
It's fantastic. So the Hayes Foundation Award for Pandemic Response, which is what I was happy to receive. It was, I believe, the official phrasing for public service in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And when I first heard that I was even just nominated for this, I choked up. For those of us, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of, I think, my entire team, dare I say, even my entire agency. For those of us who go into public service, the reason we pursue these jobs or take these jobs in the first place, a lot of us could be making a lot more money doing other things. And we go into public service because we take that phrase seriously. We want to serve the people. And to not only find ourselves in a position during this historic time where we were positioned to serve people during a pandemic, but also then months later to actually be acknowledged for the work we did on that front. I think that acknowledgement really, it's so gratifying. It's so amazing. It only encourages us to want to do these types of things more. It really makes us feel, I think, vindicated for the decisions we make to go into public service. And it's something that really I'll never forget. Again, even just being nominated, let alone receiving it. But again, my entire team, and I said this as soon as I found out about the award, to my entire team, this is something all of us really earned, and I think we all deserve collectively. I'm happy to kind of receive it on behalf of all my colleagues, but really, it was absolutely a team effort, 100%. And I would like the public to just be aware of just how insanely devoted the folks who work for your city government really are during this time, but even prior to this time, that they're working, we had all hands on deck mentality for really 12 months straight, working nights and weekends to do anything possible, whether it was officially our job or not, to really to serve the people and to serve New York. And really, again, that acknowledgement from the Hayes Foundation that we did a good job in putting in all that effort and the work we did, it really is tremendous.
It's, on behalf of me and my department and program, really congratulations on that award. It is a giant deal. And I'm somebody who also recognizes how good it feels to have hard work acknowledged. It's something that's really important. Let me end with a question that might not be easy to answer. What's next on your plate? What are you going to go tackle next? What's your next big, issue you're going to look at?
Sure. So we're in the middle of, again, more strategic planning as we're, now over a year into the pandemic, hoping that the end of the pandemic is not too far down the road. And so we're thinking, like, what do we need to do next? And I could tell you, again, from where I sit, with my work with the city's institutions of higher education, the city has a lot of needs, and we really do view the role of higher ed to be central to what the city needs to do in order to continue its progress into the 21st century, in terms of having the city having a 21st century economy, 21st century workforce. Higher ed plays a crucial role, and ultimately helping the students, right, the New Yorkers who are the future workforce, gain the skills and education they need to be successful, both at an individual level and to a point where they are helping grow the local economy, grow certainly the tech industry. That's my focus. And we're hoping to continue that track and do so in a way that's sustainable with long-term benefits for the city at large.
Dr. Domanski, I must say, you seem like you're a very passionate person. It must have been wonderful having you as a professor when you used to be a faculty member, but we are very lucky to have you in your current position, because very few things are more important to me as a professor than making sure that our talented students who go through their degree programs are able to be set up with the right employers, the right jobs, and to be able to succeed after they graduate. So thank you so much for your work. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today and meeting you. And hey, I'm always up for some collaboration going forward between my program and your agency if the challenge and the opportunity exists. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Been my pleasure. And yes, and we are excited, like I said, to continue a lot of this work. And we want everyone in New York to really believe that the city has been working its tail off nonstop in order to serve all of you. So I would like to just say thank you to everyone else out there for persevering through all the struggles and hardships and challenges that really everyone in the city and the country has had to face over the last year plus.
Thank you very much.